During the pitch-black night of August 8th, 1963, a Royal Mail train was making its way from Glasgow to London. One of the train cars was packed with bags full of cash, amounting to roughly £67 million in today's money. The train's engineer, Jack Mills, was speeding the locomotive through the dark of the night. Suddenly, at a crossing, a red signal light flashed on. This was highly unusual for the engineer because a red light at this specific time and place made absolutely no sense. Regardless, Jack Mills immediately hit the brakes, bringing the train to a halt right in the middle of nowhere. For a brief moment, complete silence fell over the area, but hidden behind this silence was a master plan set to pull off the greatest heist of the century, the Great Train Robbery, where the train itself was hijacked. This might sound like a movie plot, but in real life, robbers executed a suspense-filled plan and looted millions of pounds from a British government train, all without firing a single shot. It all started months earlier, when a few notorious London criminals gathered to brainstorm a massive new operation. Bruce Reynolds, the mastermind behind the scheme, teamed up with a few associates to plan an unprecedented heist. He had gotten his hands on some highly classified information regarding Britain's National Post Service, the Royal Mail. This secret intel came directly from a senior security officer within the Royal Mail, an insider whose true identity remained a complete mystery. The intel revealed that a specific train traveling from Glasgow to London contained a special car known as the High Value Packages, or HVP, carriage. On one particular day, an enormous amount of cash was scheduled to be transported, and this was the exact car they needed to target. While Bruce Reynolds and his crew were well-known criminals, they had zero experience when it came to robbing trains. Because of this, they brought another London gang into the fold, one that actually had experience with train robberies. This infamous crew was known as the South Coast Raiders. Slowly but surely, the team expanded, and soon the operation involved over 15 people. They were determined to rob a government train without firing a single bullet. But this was no ordinary stick-up where you just stop a train and take the money. This required months of meticulous planning. On August 7th, 1963, at 6:50 p.m., the train departed from Glasgow Central Station, headed for London. It was scheduled to arrive at London's Euston Railway Station at 4 a.m. the next morning. The train consisted of 12 cars in total, carrying a crew of 72 post office workers who sorted the mail during the journey. This specific train was operated exclusively to drop off parcels and mail at various cities along the route. To stay on schedule, it had to make these drops at different stations without ever coming to a complete stop. Whenever a station approached, the local post office staff would hang mailbags on special elevated racks. As the train rolled past the platform at a reduced speed, the crew inside would use a net to catch those bags on the fly. Similarly, the mailbags meant for that specific station were tossed straight out onto the platform while the train was still moving. Through this process, mail was distributed across various stations without the train ever hitting the brakes. Interestingly, the specific car targeted for the robbery wasn't even attached to the train yet. That car was safely parked, waiting at the Nenny Valley Railway Station. It was called the HVP, or High Value Packages car, because it carried massive amounts of cash from people sending money orders to other cities. In 1960, 3 years prior to the heist, the Post Office Investigation Branch, or IB, ordered the installation of security alarm systems in HVP cars to beef up security. By 1961, these alarms had been installed in 3 of the HVP cars. The older cars, which lacked these security alarms, were kept strictly as reserves. But the day of the heist was critical. On that exact day, the HVP cars equipped with security alarms were out of service. Consequently, a reserve car had to be used, and it had absolutely no security system installed. This was a massive tip-off given to the robbers by their Royal Mail insider. When the train from Glasgow arrived at the Nenny Valley Railway Station, the railway staff connected the HVP car right behind the locomotive, making it the second car in line. This was the first major tip the robbers received, but the second tip was even more crucial. Normally, these HVP cars carried around £300,000 in cash. However, because the previous weekend had been a bank holiday, the car was loaded with nearly £3 million in cash on the day of the robbery. And that was tip number 2, meaning the sheer coincidence of that day's haul was something that probably only happened once in years. They were moving 12 times the normal amount of money, and coincidentally, the alarmed HVP car was broken down. But for the robbers, this wasn't just a coincidence. They had been planning for this exact day for months. With the HVP car now attached, the train finally departed from Nini Valley Station. It was now late into the night, and the 58-year-old train engineer Jack Mills was speeding toward their destination. Meanwhile, the gang of robbers was lying in wait, hiding in the bushes near the railway tracks with a perfectly executed plan. Around 3 a.m. on August 8, 1963, a member of the gang began tampering with the signal at Sears Crossing. He covered the green light with a glove to hide it and used a battery to power on the red light, after which they all hid and waited for the train to arrive. When the train approached Sears Crossing, the engineer was shocked to see a red light, as trains, especially the Royal Mail, were normally never stopped at this crossing. Regardless, Jack Mills applied the brakes and brought the train to a halt right at the signal. Suddenly, an eerie silence took over. At that moment, the assistant engineer, also known as the second man, climbed down from the train to contact the signalman using the trackside telephone. But when he picked up the receiver, he discovered the line had been cut, which was, of course, part of the robbers' plan. Just as the second man turned around to head back to the locomotive, the robbers emerged from the bushes and overpowered him. Some of the robbers climbed up both sides of the engine and attempted to subdue the engineer. When Jack Mills put up a fight, one of the robbers struck him over the head with an iron rod, knocking him unconscious right in the driver's seat. The gang had come completely prepared. While this chaos was unfolding up in the engine room, other team members uncoupled the locomotive and the first 2 cars from the rest of the train. Their plan was to drive the front of the train away from the scene. But to where? About a mile away from Sears Crossing was Bridego Bridge, and that's exactly where the robbers had their truck waiting. They had brought along a retired railway engineer whose sole job was to drive the hijacked train to the bridge. Up until this point, everything had gone exactly according to plan. But then, the robbers faced their first major hurdle. The retired engineer they brought panicked the moment he saw the modern controls, as he had never actually operated this type of locomotive before. Left with no other choice, the robbers revived Jack Mills and forced him at knife point to drive the train the remaining mile. The engine and the 2 attached cars began moving again, eventually stopping at Bridego Bridge a mile down the track. During all of this, the postal crew in the remaining cars left behind had no idea why the train had even stopped. Upon reaching Bridego Bridge, the robbers smashed open the doors of the HVP car, stormed inside, severely beat the 5 staff members, tied them face down with ropes, and got to work. The HVP car was packed with 128 sacks overflowing with cash. These were in denominations of £1, £5, and 10 shilling notes, with a total weight of around 2.5 tons. The train was up on the bridge, and a truck was parked down on the road below. According to their schedule, the robbers had a tight 15-minute window. So, they formed a human chain and quickly loaded 120 of the 128 sacks into the truck. They had to leave the remaining 8 sacks behind simply because they ran out of time. But their plan had worked flawlessly. However, right at the very end, they made one single mistake, a mistake that would ultimately prove to be the key to their downfall. Right before leaving, one of the robbers warned the tied-up staff inside the HVP car, telling them not to move for exactly 30 minutes or they would be killed. The robbers had an Austin Lodestar truck loaded with all the cash, along with 2 Land Rovers, and to throw off any witnesses, they put the exact same fake license plate, BMG 7578, on both vehicles before fleeing the scene. Following about a 45-minute drive, they arrived at their hideout at 4:30 a.m., located near a village called Oakley, roughly 27 miles from the crime scene. Along the way, they tuned into police frequencies on a VHF radio, which proved to be a massive advantage. The exact moment they rolled into their hideout, they heard that the police had just been alerted about the robbery. But for the time being, they were ecstatic, celebrating their victory hard at the hideout. They even sat down to play a game of Monopoly, using the actual stolen money. However, their celebration was short-lived. Shortly after, they heard on the radio that the police were actively searching for them within a 32 miles radius. The cops figured out this exact 32 miles radius because the robbers had specifically told the train staff to stay put for 30 minutes. The police easily calculated that in 30 minutes, the crew could only travel within a 32 miles radius. Hearing this, panic set in among the robbers, and they immediately moved their escape plan up from Sunday to Friday. By Thursday, they had divided up all the money among themselves, which totaled nearly £2.5 million. According to some reports, each main crew member walked away with around £150,000, a staggering fortune for that era. In today's money, that translates to about £3.9 million per person. The leftover cash was paid out to the accomplices who played minor roles. Before Friday rolled around, they meticulously wiped down the hideout to remove all fingerprints, assigning one guy the job of burning the whole place down after they left so the police wouldn't find a single shred of evidence. The man took the money, but fled without burning down the hideout, while the police were actively hunting for them across the entire Buckinghamshire area. Helicopters were circling over the city, police cars were racing everywhere, and it caused a massive uproar across the national media. The police also announced a £10,000 reward for anyone who could provide solid information. Hearing this, a neighbor living near the hideout came forward and tipped off the police that there had been a lot of suspicious activity there on the morning of August 8th. Acting on this suspicion, the police immediately raided the hideout. It was Leatherslade Farm, a farmhouse the robbers had rented just 3 months prior. Inside, the police uncovered a mountain of evidence directly linking back to the robbery. They found empty mailbags, scattered mail, and even a truck that had been hastily painted yellow. While the robbers thought they had wiped away all their fingerprints, they missed the Monopoly board they had used to play with the real stolen cash. These fingerprints proved to be the biggest breakthrough in the case, since all of them already had some kind of prior criminal record. The prints quickly matched the records on file with the police and Scotland Yard, finally exposing the true identities of the culprits. Within a few days, the police managed to track down and arrest 14 out of the 16 gang members. Only 2 people managed to escape the law: the replacement train engineer, whose real name was completely unknown, and the senior Royal Mail security officer who had provided the crucial insider intel for the entire plan. To this day, the true identity of that officer remains a mystery, as he never showed his real face or revealed his name. The court declared this the greatest heist of the century and sentenced nearly all the gang members to 30 years in prison. Following the heist, Bridego Bridge became famously known as the Train Robbers Bridge, and it retains that informal title to this very day. Jack Mills, the 58-year-old train engineer, suffered such severe head trauma that he was never able to return to work, and sadly passed away 7 years later due to the trauma. We hope you guys will hit that like button and share this Stock It AI video. Thank you so much for your amazing comments, and we'll catch you in the next incredible video.